Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. I'd like to be joined now by Deepak Chopra. Deepak, welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. I need to start with an apology because I'm told the one thing you don't like being called is a guru. So me repeatedly calling you the guru of all gurus probably was not the best way to introduce you earlier. How do you like to be described?
So, Piers, let me ask you a question. Can you spell guru for me?
G-U-R-U.
That's it. G-U-R-U. The only guru is your own self. Everything else is an impersonation. So
how do you best describe yourself, Deepak?
I'm still trying to decide what I'll do when I grow up. I think any description you have of yourself is limiting.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The reason I wanted to get you on was because I just get a feeling a lot of people think the world's gone completely crazy. You know, we've had a global pandemic, a war in Europe, surging inflation, possibly a recession, culture wars erupting all over the place, cancel culture and so on. Can you put it into some kind of historical perspective? Are things any better or worse now than they've been before? And if the world is going a bit crackers, what's the best advice for dealing with it?
So very well stated. If you do not believe that the world is gone insane, then you're declaring your own insanity. What do you call a world that is sleepwalking to extinction right now, with climate change, with social and economic injustice, with mass migrations, with pandemics, with mechanized ways of killing each other, cyber warfare, terrorism, the immense fear, sympathetic overdrive? Sleepwalking to extinction is insanity. So we are definitely at a crossroads where we need a new story for our well-being, a new story for humanity, and a new story for this planet. Otherwise, we are doomed. We are sleepwalking, as I said, to extinction. If insects disappeared from this planet, in 5 years, all life on this planet would cease. If humans disappeared from this planet, in 5 years, all life on this planet would flourish. We would return to the state of innocence, the state of grace, and the Garden of Eden. Now, metaphorically speaking, what I'm saying is not just a metaphor, it's literal. This world right now does not realize that what we call the average is the psychopathology of the insane, divided, tribal, conditioned mind with modern capacities. You're saying, are things any different? Well, in a way they aren't. You know, when I spoke to my parents a long time ago, they spoke of the Holocaust, the Second World War, the atomic bomb. My grandfather spoke about the First World War, the pandemic. But what we have today, Piers, is modern capacities for mechanized extinction and death and tribal medieval minds. The combination doesn't work.
We also have another threat. And I want to preface this by playing a clip. I did the last television interview with Professor Stephen Hawking before he died. And it was a remarkable day, incredible experience in my life, I have to say. But I did put to him a specific question about what is the biggest threat to civilization. Here was his response.
There is a greater danger from artificial intelligence if we allow it to become self-designing, for then it can improve itself rapidly, and we may lose control.
You know, I was reminded of that today with this extraordinary story of the Google engineer who claims that an artificial intelligence bot that they do, a language model for dialogue applications, had turned sentient, was beginning to express emotions and feelings and responses of a 7 to 8 year old human child. Now, Google have denied it, but I was cognizant, as I read this story, about what Professor Hawking had warned me about, which is the threat from artificial intelligence if it ever does self-design.
Well, I'm a fan of artificial intelligence. In fact, I have a replica of mine called digitaldeepak.ai. You can check him out on the internet, and he knows more about everything than I do. He's read my 95 books, and He can be an excellent coach for well-being, etc. On the Google statement or the Google news, it's absolutely ridiculous, absolutely a joke. Does the AI have anxiety about death? Does the AI have sex? Does the AI feel hunger or thirst? Does the AI have existential dilemmas? The AI is just an algorithm. What Professor Hawking said is true, though, unless we have ethical editing of AI, it could turn to be dangerous. But I don't think it could ever be sentient. And already there's a move in the AI world called ethical AI, where you build in safeguards against AI taking over or destroying humanity. And you use AI for things that we don't, right now, for example, the legal system is going to be obsolete because of AI, the regular contracts. Diagnosis, precision diagnosis, deep learning, remote surgery, these are all happening because of AI. We could relegate these things to AI so that we can tap into our consciousness for insight, intuition, creativity, higher consciousness, and create a critical mass for a more peaceful, just, sustainable, healthier, and joyful world. And AI has a role, provided we are also aware of its possible dangers. There's no technology which comes without danger, Piers.
Fascinating. Deepak, let me ask you about another thing which has been bothering me. A lot of these mass shootings we've been seeing in America, two of the common themes around it are not just guns, obviously, which are the weapons used, but in my view, something else is going on here, which is a combination of the sensory overload that young people are now getting just generally. Both the shooter in the Uvalde, Texas school mass shooting and the Sandy Hook shooter were both addicted to Call of Duty, the war game, for example. And Hollywood stars today have all signed a petition to try and reduce the amount of glamorizing of gun violence in movies. And I spoke to Dr. Phil a couple of years ago, and he said the difference between today with young people and when he was young was that the amount of bad stuff that young people see now through social media, through clips that do the rounds of their friends and so on, is relentless and is damaging to people. What do you think of that?
Well, there are many issues. First of all, America particularly has a romantic relationship with guns and with violence. And so does Hollywood have a romantic relationship. It doesn't matter. We're going into the different galaxies, but we're still talking about Star Wars. Everything is about a war. Violence is part of our culture, and our romance with violence is what makes money for Hollywood and for entertainment, and it's the ultimate hypocrisy. The other thing is Americans like to talk about the Second Amendment or, the right to carry guns, but in a moment they'll strip women of their rights for their reproductive rights. So it's total hypocrisy, and it's driven by money, and unless we address the a teenager cannot buy cigarettes or alcohol or pornography, but can go to a 7-Eleven or some Walmart or whatever, or, a gun store, although Walmart is changing its policies, and get a gun. So this is very ridiculous what's happening in America. Unfortunately, the rest of the world follows America. And so between gun violence, the romanticization of violence in general, war and terrorism as something to be looked up to, and the chain of money that drives these with special interest groups, especially in Washington. There are, for every legislator, there are 30 healthcare lobbyists, 30 gun lobbyists, 30 people from the medical industrial complex. So what we call corruption, cronyism, influence peddling, and gangster leadership is taking over the world, and we really have to resist that. We are at a crossroads now with new things emerging like blockchain and NFTs and metaverse, where I think we'll need to take power away from these people who are only interested in cronyism, corruption, and money peddling, and bring democracy truly on a global level through information technologies and even AI.
You know, Deepak, you always express these things so eloquently, far better than I could. You've got a great book out, Abundance, the Inner Path to Wealth. You got the idea, I understand, from the Bob Marley lyrics, some people are so poor, all they have is money, which is brilliant. Deepak, I've got to leave it there. I could talk to you for hours, and would love to get you back again.
Thank you.
It's great to talk to you again. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Piers.